In 2022, a Mercedes dealership sold a Mercedes G63 AMG for $337,000. The window sticker on that car read a little over $175,000. That's not a rare, limited edition. That's not a coach-built one-off with a waiting list managed by a loyalty committee. That's the same boxy, upright, faintly ridiculous-looking SUV that Mercedes has been building since the 1970s, that you can see idling outside 100 different gyms in Los Angeles on any given afternoon, marked up by $162,000 over sticker, and someone paid it. Here's what makes this genuinely strange, and it's the reason this video exists. Every scarcity story we've told on this channel follows the same pattern. A manufacturer deliberately builds a tiny number of a special car, and demand chases a fixed, engineered shortage. That's the Ferrari story. That's the Porsche GT3 story. Mercedes does not do that with the G63. They build these things by the tens of thousands every single year, all over the world. There is no allocation waiting list run by a sales advisor who has to like you. There is no capped production number. And yet, 5 years after purchase, a G-Class holds more of its original value than almost any other vehicle sold in America. More than a Lexus, more than a Range Rover, more than a BMW X7. It behaves, financially, like a genuinely rare car, while being manufactured like an ordinary one. So the question this video actually answers isn't, is the G63 a good investment? It's stranger and more interesting than that. How does a mass-produced SUV fake the economics of scarcity, and what does it actually cost you to be the person paying for that illusion? Here's the idea that unlocks everything else. The Mercedes G63 AMG is not fundamentally a luxury vehicle or an off-roader, even though it's marketed and engineered as both. It is a cultural signaling object that happens to be a car. And once you understand that, every strange number in this video stops being strange. Nobody is fighting a dealer markup war over a G63 because they need portal axles and a low-range transfer case to survive a daily commute. They're paying it because the silhouette itself, that upright, flat-sided box, has become one of the most recognized shorthand symbols of arrival in modern culture. It shows up in music videos wrapped in matte finishes. It's the car parked outside the private members club, not scaling a mountain pass. Mercedes' own engineering brief for this vehicle has always leaned into that tension, and the market has resolved it decisively. Buyers aren't purchasing off-road capability, they're purchasing the shape. That distinction matters enormously for the economics because it means the G63's value isn't tied to how well it performs a function. It's tied to how widely and durably desirable that specific silhouette remains. A much stranger, much less predictable thing to build a financial model around than horsepower or towing capacity, and yet it's turned out to be remarkably durable. Before the numbers make sense, understand that G-Wagon covers a real spread of distinct financial objects, all sharing the identical silhouette that's doing the actual work of holding value. The G550 sits at the base of the range, running a 6-cylinder engine rather than AMG's V8, and it's genuinely the more sensible entry point. Lower purchase price, lower running costs, and it still wears the exact shape everyone is actually paying for. For a buyer who understands that the value is in the silhouette rather than the horsepower figure, this is arguably the smartest financial position in the whole lineup. Nearly all of the resale benefit, meaningfully less of the ownership cost. The G63 AMG is the volume seller and the one this video is built around. The twin-turbo V8, the performance credibility, the trim most people picture when they picture a G-Wagon at all. This is also where the dealer markup pressure concentrates hardest, precisely because it's the version that shows up most in music videos and on the most recognizable driveways, making it the trim with the most borrowed cultural heat, and therefore the most exposure to that heat cooling off. Limited and specialty variants, the discontinued V12 G65, Brabus-tuned wide-body conversions, ultra-low production special editions sit at the top,
And this is where genuine engineered scarcity finally enters the picture. These are the trucks that behave like the Ferrari and GT3 stories we've told elsewhere. Real capped numbers, real appreciation potential, and a price floor that doesn't depend on ongoing cultural momentum the way the standard G63 does. The pattern across all three, as you move up the range from G550 to G63 to the limited variants, you trade rational, cost-conscious ownership for progressively more concentrated exposure to pure desirability, and the financial outcome becomes progressively more dependent on whether that desirability, rather than any engineering fact, holds steady.
Let's get concrete, because the figures here genuinely don't behave the way depreciation is supposed to work. A new G63 currently starts around $198,000 before destination and options, and a realistically configured example lands closer to $230,000. Industry resale tracking puts the G-Class at the very top of the luxury SUV category for value retention after 5 years, holding roughly 56.6% of its original price, a figure that beats the Range Rover, beats the BMW X7, and comfortably beats even Lexus, a brand whose entire reputation is built on holding value. For comparison, most luxury SUVs in this price range are down closer to 40% retained value over the same window, sometimes worse. Push the clock further, and it gets stranger still. A 2015 G-Class, a full decade old, still retains close to 40% of its original value, trading at an average price north of $63,000 for a used luxury SUV old enough to be driven by a teenager. Real listings for recent used examples routinely show 2-year-old G63s selling in the $165,000 to $180,000 range against an original sticker in the low 200s, meaning some owners have lost as little as 10% of their money over multiple years of ownership on a vehicle nobody would call rare. And at the absolute extreme, there's a data point worth sitting with. Mercedes briefly sold a limited twin-turbo V12 version of the G-Class, the G65, in far smaller numbers than the standard V8 G63. Because it was genuinely scarce rather than merely desirable, it never depreciated at all. Clean examples now trade for $100,000 to $140,000, roughly half the price of a brand new ordinary G63, for a car that's more powerful and considerably older. That's the control group. That's what real engineered scarcity does to a price curve. The regular G63 isn't doing that. It's approximating that result through demand and desirability alone, which is a much harder trick to pull off and a much less certain one to bet on long term.
Here's the part that separates this from every allocation story we've told before. Mercedes doesn't ration the G63 the way Porsche rations the GT3. There's no formal point system, no service history ladder, no sales advisor deciding whether you've earned the right to buy one. And yet, dealers routinely charge tens of thousands of dollars over sticker anyway, because they don't need a rationing system. They just need more buyers standing in the showroom on any given day than there are trucks on the lot. During the peak of the post-pandemic shortage, buyers were paying an average of $30,000 over the roughly $175,000 sticker just to get a standard G63, with some documented sales climbing past $300,000 for specially optioned trucks. Even now, with supply chains largely normalized, forum threads from actual buyers describe the same pattern repeating itself. Dealers openly telling shoppers that MSRP pricing is reserved for existing customers with a service history, or bundling the truck with unwanted accessories and extended financing specifically to extract extra margin from a buyer who has no real leverage to walk away. This is scarcity without a scarcity department. Nobody at Mercedes capped this year's production run to create the pressure. The pressure exists simply because enough people want the shape badly enough in enough cities at the same time that any individual dealer can charge more than sticker and still sell the truck before the ink dries. It's a market behaving exactly like a rationed one, with none of the actual rationing infrastructure underneath it. Proof that engineered scarcity and organic desirability can produce nearly identical price behavior from completely different mechanisms.
Don't mistake strong resale for cheap ownership, because those are two entirely separate financial stories, and the G63 makes that distinction unusually clear. This is still a German luxury performance SUV with a hand-built twin-turbo V8, Portal-style four-wheel drive hardware descended from a genuine military vehicle, and a driving position that behaves nothing like the shape suggests. Real owners consistently describe maintenance costs as, in their words, notoriously high. Specialist service, premium parts pricing, and a mechanical layout that has more in common with a proper off-roader than a typical crossover, which means repairs, when they come, aren't cheap or quick. Insurance on a vehicle in this price bracket runs into real money annually, given both the replacement cost and the performance profile. Fuel economy is genuinely poor for the segment, a 5,800-pound brick shape pushed through the air with all the aerodynamic grace you'd expect. So the honest picture is this: you're not getting a cheap car that happens to hold its value. You're getting an expensive car to run that also happens to hold its value unusually well. Two separate and largely unrelated facts that the strong resale numbers can make it easy to conflate. The running costs don't improve just because the depreciation curve is gentle. Take a G63, purchased new at a realistic configured price of $230,000, bought during an ordinary demand period rather than a peak markup spike. Running costs first. Insurance on a vehicle in this price and performance bracket, given both replacement value and the AMG performance profile, runs into real five-figure territory across 5 years once you account for a high-value comprehensive policy. Maintenance on the twin-turbo V8 and the genuine four-wheel drive hardware at specialist rates rather than a generic shop willing to touch it incorrectly adds another meaningful five-figure sum over the same period between routine service and the larger jobs that a performance-tuned engine eventually needs. Fuel costs run high given the vehicle's poor aerodynamics and genuine curb weight, and tires, wide, performance-rated, and not cheap, need replacing more often than the tread would suggest given the truck's weight and power. All in, 5 years of running costs on a G63 driven as a genuine daily vehicle can land somewhere in the $35,000 to $50,000 range, a real and unglamorous number that has nothing to do with the truck's resale story. Now put that against the value side. At the industry's documented 5-year retention rate of roughly 56.6%, that $230,000 purchase is worth somewhere around $130,000 5 years later, a depreciation loss of about $100,000, which sounds severe in isolation, but is dramatically better than a comparable Range Rover or BMW X7 would produce over the identical period, where retention often falls closer to 40% or below, turning that same $230,000 into something closer to $90,000 or less. Add the two halves together, the roughly $100,000 depreciation loss plus $35,000 to $50,000 in running costs, and total 5-year ownership cost lands somewhere around $135,000 to $150,000 on a $230,000 purchase. That's genuinely painful in absolute terms. It is also, relative to almost every other vehicle in this price bracket, one of the better outcomes available, which is precisely why the demand, and the markup that demand produces, keeps renewing itself year after year. Same truck, same badge, two very different financial experiences depending entirely on when and how you bought in. The bad outcome. You want a G63 during a moment of peak cultural heat, a viral video, a celebrity sighting, a supply crunch, and you walk into a dealership as a stranger with no service history and no leverage. You pay $30,000, $60,000, in extreme cases, well over $100,000 above sticker. financed at whatever rate the dealer's in-house lender offers because you're already emotionally committed. You've paid the peak desire premium for a vehicle whose entire pricing logic depends on that exact desire persisting. If cultural attention shifts even modestly, a new status shape becomes fashionable. The markup era cools the way it eventually did after the pandemic spike. You're the owner holding an asset priced for a demand level that's already softened. The good outcome. You buy used, ideally 2 to 3 years old, letting someone else absorb the brief initial registration dip and the worst of any markup era premium. You're paying close to what a new one costs today in real terms, but for a truck that's already proven it holds value at this specific age, rather than betting on a projection. You service it properly despite the real running costs, because a documented maintenance history is precisely what keeps resale strong in this category. 5 or 10 years later, you're one of the owners in that data set still holding close to 40% of your money, in a segment where most competitors are down to a fraction of that. Same silhouette, same batch. The difference was never the truck. It was whether you bought into peak desire or let someone else pay for being first.
Given all of that, the manufactured feeling scarcity, the real running costs, the risk that the whole premium depends on cultural momentum that could theoretically fade, why does this remain one of the most consistently desired vehicles in the luxury market year after year? Because the thing people are actually buying has proven remarkably durable as a piece of cultural shorthand in a way that's genuinely hard to manufacture on purpose. Brands spend enormous sums trying to build exactly this kind of instantly recognizable status silhouette, and mostly fail. The G-Class earned it over 5 decades, starting as an actual military vehicle, which gives it a kind of authenticity a purpose-built status symbol could never fake. That history is baked into the shape itself, and it's precisely what makes the desirability feel less like a fad and more like an established, if unusual, category of asset. And there's a real practical logic underneath the cultural one. Unlike a 2-seat supercar, this is a vehicle people can actually use every day, with real off-road hardware underneath the status paint, genuine cargo space, and real family practicality, meaning the buyer isn't purely speculating on desirability. They're getting a functional vehicle that also happens to hold value like a collectible, which is a genuinely rare combination in this price range.
So, can a Mercedes G63 AMG make you money, or at least avoid losing much of it? Historically, yes, more reliably than almost any other mass-produced luxury vehicle on the market, holding more value after 5 years than nearly every rival in its class, without the benefit of any real engineered scarcity behind it. But understand what you're actually paying for when the markup arrives, because it was never really about the truck's capability or its build quality. It's a bet that a specific, recognizable shape will remain culturally desired by enough people in enough places for long enough that the next buyer will pay close to what you paid. A bet that has worked remarkably well for 5 decades running, but one that depends entirely on cultural momentum rather than a factory-imposed ceiling on supply. That's the trick hiding in plain sight in every G63 sitting on a dealer's lot with a market adjustment sticker in the window. It looks like the same kind of scarcity story we've told about a Ferrari or a Porsche GT3. It isn't. Nobody capped the production run. The scarcity here is entirely borrowed from the crowd standing in the showroom, and the moment that crowd thins out, so does the premium. So if you're chasing the G63, the real question was never whether it holds value. The data says it probably will. It's whether you're comfortable paying today's price for tomorrow's continued desire, or whether you'd rather let someone else make that bet first and buy the truck once it's already proven the crowd is still there.